Congratulations! You've graduated, walked across the stage, moved the tassel, the trustees have given you a diploma, now you've got your bachelor's degree, and you need a job.
They don't have our experience and they don't have our intuition.
Okay.
Billy, you got a kid in there that's got a degree in economics from Yale. You got a scout here with 29 years of baseball experience. You're listening to the wrong one.
So how do you move from college to career successfully? Let me start you off with something. Did you know that less than 50% of those who major in an area actually end up working in an area closely associated with their major? Yeah, that means that for most people leaving college and entering the workforce, you're going to have to create a path that wasn't just automatically given to you when you received your diploma.
Now, there are intangibles that only baseball people understand. You're discounting what scouts have done for 150 years, even yourself?
Adapt or die.
So let's take a look at what it takes to move from college to career, the things to avoid, the things to look for, and the things to add, so that you can find a career that actually means something. Hi, I'm James Callahan, and this is The Do-Over Show, and I've spent more than 20 years in the college classroom as an adjunct, a consultant in the boardroom, advising students, helping people move from college to career with some success. And let me get this out in front right away. And that is, there's a big difference between a job, which is you just exchange your time for a wage, and you provide a service, and a career. A career is something where you acquire something, a skill set that you take with you no matter where you go, and you can continue to build on that, adding to your skill set so that you have a level of proficiency, so that when someone looks at you, they look at you not just as a warm body to fill a seat, but they look at you as somebody who is a value add to the company, to the business, to the service. So what you're really trying to do is to develop something called transferable skills. Now, transferable skills, that's the hot thing today in today's job market. That is, you learn a set of skills in one area that you can transfer or apply to another area. I have a Ph.D. in religious history and studies, and that is not the work that I do today. But everything that I learned as a grad student, as an early professor in the academic world, I now use in my roles, making a living, making a good living, making more money than I would in higher education. I now use those skills in ways that help me build a career. What you're looking for is not just a cookie cutter job. I got a degree in biology, I need a biology job. But what skills you acquire in higher education. Now, the top skills that employers are looking for are people who can solve problems, people who can work together on a team. Remember all those team projects you complained about? The rest of your life is going to be filled with team projects. And they also look for people who have critical thinking skills. Where in the world do you develop critical thinking skills? Entertaining ideas that you don't necessarily agree with or you've never heard of before, and all of a sudden you've got to apply them in a new situation and say, what am I going to do here? What's the solution? What are my 3 options? You learn that in higher education. See, you have transferable skills that are part of what you've acquired in higher education. It's just that professors in higher education never told you that they were going to be transferable. They just thought they applied to the discipline that you were studying at the time. Now that brings me to the next thing. When you leave higher education, you're probably thinking, okay, the only serious person who's ever connected with the adult world of workforce that I've ever worked with any level of trust or competency is my professor. And most people graduating college will put a professor or an advisor or a mentor that they had in undergrad, and they'll put that on their resume, and that'll be a reference, that'll be someone that they think, oh, that person's going to help me get a job. Okay, first of all, people in higher education have not worked in the workforce, the real world outside of higher education in 5, 10, 20, 40 years. They are the worst people to give you advice about how to get a job. Why? They've avoided getting a job by working in a field that is protected by tenure, by isolation within those halls, so that they could isolate themselves to do study and to devote themselves to teaching and invest in you. Congratulations to all that. A really good job. But it is not something that's going to help you get a career. For example, you're going to put their name down as a reference. Somebody's going to call them. Now, what that makes you look like is a student, not an adult, out in the workforce. If you use, for example, an email that's your student email, like @student.edu, Your employer is going to look at you and say, this is a kid. I want an adult. Get yourself a real email, at least a Gmail account, and move on from your college ties that bind you. A professor is not going to help you. They rarely get you a job unless you're in a professional program. That means that for most, you've got to find real adults. How do you find real adults? Well, you find real adults on places like LinkedIn and professional networking in your field. Okay, how long does that take? It takes years, which means you should have started this when you were a first or second year student in higher education, building those connections. So yes, invest your time in LinkedIn, make new connections within the fields that you're interested in. And you can start as a student. You can say, hey, I'm studying this. I'm really interested in the field that you work in. I'd like to connect here on LinkedIn. And most people will be gracious to you. Now, don't bomb them. Just do a couple at a time. And if they don't respond, delete them from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn doesn't throttle you and slow down your ability to grow. Oh, and by the way, you need 500 connections so that you don't look like a newbie to LinkedIn. Because once you get to, if you have 303 connections, it'll say John Smith has 303 connections. But when John Smith gets 500 connections, it'll say John Smith has 500 plus connections. If John Smith has 5,000 connections, it'll still say John Smith has 500 connections, unless you dig deep into John Smith's profile. It means you need to get your ass across the 500 connections mark, and that takes time so that you're not just spamming people. You can start with other people, friends, colleagues, people within your university or college program, people you meet at conferences or that you work with. Fine, that's all good. But move beyond just students, move beyond just professors into the real world of workforce today. Now, the other thing that people struggle with leaving college is a lack of experience. So you'll find some entry-level jobs that will say you need 2 years of experience. And you're saying to yourself, I just finished college. I just went to my last kegger. I just walked across the stage. I just got my diploma. I don't have any experience, which means your resume is pretty much blank. Okay. You need to have something on your resume that demonstrates that you're more than just a student, somebody without experience but with education. And by the way, that's a big difference. People who are hiring today look at you and they say, congratulations, you finished your degree. And by the way, finish the damn degree. You have to prove that you finished your degree because it's the majority that fail to finish their degree. That is 30, 40, 50% at some colleges and universities people that start don't finish. So when an employer asks for your college transcripts, they're not checking your grades, they're checking whether or not you actually told the truth about finishing a degree. Okay, back to your resume. You've got to have something there. I know, putting college down, your major down, your minor down, your list of classes, I know we want to pad it and fill it in. It doesn't work. You need some work experience. You need something to put on your resume that demonstrates that you are able to do something besides a degree, that you're able to work, that you're able to balance work and school, for example, or that you work during the summer, an internship, a paid thing. Here's one of the most creative things I've seen from students who have spent a lot of their time in higher education, didn't necessarily have to work. So what did they do? They did volunteer work for a nonprofit. That is, they gave their time away, a volunteer, to a nonprofit, and they did something. Worked in a soup kitchen, worked in a resale shop, worked in a recovery facility, worked in an animal clinic, worked whatever. But they put that down, and that showed that they could show up and they did their work. Now, if you are out of college, you don't have a job, you're looking for a job, while you're looking for a job, I say go volunteer 20 hours a week. Volunteer at a nonprofit, and then that enters on you put that down on your resume, which shows you've done something. You didn't just sit around waiting for the world to give you a job. Instead, you went out and created more experience for yourself. That is critical. And that's what an employer is looking for. Now, I know, don't put your professor down as a reference. So who do you put down as a reference? Somebody you volunteered with at a nonprofit. They'll be so happy that you gave your time away and that you showed up and that you did your job that they'll be happy to give you a recommendation, which doesn't connect with your college world, that connects you with the adult world and makes you look like somebody that they could hire to actually do the job. Okay. The other thing you're going to keep in mind when you're looking for a degree is that you don't necessarily have to apply with your field. Remember, less than half actually work in that field. So you've got to think in parallel lines. You've got to think, okay, what's over here besides me and what's over here? What kind of jobs are there? Now, the other thing to look for after you do that, after you broaden your search and you apply and you're going to email everybody, which means you're going to have very little face-to-face, in-person opportunity. So you've got to create those opportunities. You've got to follow up and make a phone call. Everyone you apply to, even if it's online, you've got to find somebody at the company, either on LinkedIn or personally, and make a connection. Say, I'm interested, I applied for a job, I just wanted to connect here and learn more about your organization. Spend some time, do your due diligence. Okay, when you actually apply for a job, your resume can be sort of standard, but once you get some experience, you're going to have to start leaving things off. When I was 15 years old, I lied about my age so that I could work a summer job as a busboy at a Sizzler steakhouse, making a couple bucks an hour. Is that on my resume today as a grown man? No, it's not. You don't have to put every job that you work down, every part-time job, every full-time job you've ever worked since high school. In fact, you'll get to a point when you'll start leaving things off your resume that don't qualify for that field or that career or that track of employment that you're looking for. You don't include everything. So once you get out of college, leave high school off. Once you get some 1 or 2 work experiences, leave your early part-time job off working at McDonald's or somewhere else. Instead, start to build adult categories in your work experience. Now, if you have nothing, absolutely nothing, one of the most creative resumes I've seen from my students, and it worked, she got a great job out of this, was that she actually listed her transferable skills. The transferable skills she listed were things she learned in her higher education program. She didn't list the courses, she didn't list the professors, she didn't list the name of the projects, but she talked about being a team lead, and she talked about accomplishing a research project that led to an outcome. The outcome was a group project. And these are all things that you did in college, but you didn't know how to put them down except, I got a C in biology. You have to find ways to be creative about filling up your resume. You can leave off things. Okay, let's say you're really desperate for money. You got to take a job. You're going to take an easy job you get hired for, and then you're going to look for a real job, a full-time job. Congratulations. Do you have to put that down in your resume? The answer is absolutely not. Not only do you leave off the insignificant jobs that don't fit the field that you're looking for, don't think that just having a padded resume is going to make you any more attractive. Instead, you're going to start working a job to pay the bills, but that doesn't need to be on your resume. If they ask what you're doing, the other person who did that volunteer work also worked part-time and made some money while they were looking for a more career job, something that they could build on, an entry-level job that they could build on. That is, they took a job to make money, they did volunteer work, and when they submitted their resume, they just put their volunteer work down. And they led their way into an opportunity, and they didn't say, well, I was working at McDonald's and volunteering at the animal shelter. They just said, I was volunteering at the animal shelter, and here are the things that I did and the skills that I learned. Congratulations, she got a job out of it. Okay, so now you've got all the details, the kind of background, things to avoid, things to add. Where do you start? When you apply, you need to have a cover letter. I know, it's difficult out of nowhere to have a cover letter. This is where AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., this is where they come in handy. You take a job ad, you give your basic cover letter to it, and you say, rewrite my cover letter to fit the keywords on this job description. And you'll get a product. Go through it. Do you need a new cover letter for every single different job you apply for? The answer is absolutely 100% yes. Yes, you do. It's lazy if you don't. And you know what employers can smell a mile away? Lazy. They want somebody who can do something difficult and finish it, who can problem solve and work through adverse circumstances, work with other people, and have a successful outcome. You've already shown them by finishing a college degree, you've done something difficult and you finished it. Congratulations, that's what an employer is looking for. And that's why people who finish their college degree make between $1.2 million and $1.5 million more than people who just have some college on their resume. Now, that also means that when you start to apply for jobs, you have a custom cover letter for it. By the way, if you're applying for a job and it doesn't require a cover letter, it's a job, not a career. It's not something that's going to build and create something that's going to last you anything more than just another minimum wage job. And you're the first to go when the economy takes a downturn. Congratulations. You need a job that requires a cover letter. So put in the time and effort. Do some research online. I need a cover letter for a job working in customer service, working in sales in manufacturing or industrial or transportation or logistics. Whatever field it is that you're applying for, there are samples out there. That means that you have to, as an old timer once told me, getting a job is a job, where you actually have to devote time and effort, make every application unique, and take advantage of any personal connections you have. One last item about personal connections. Remember, the professors are usually useless in that, and they have horrible advice when it comes to actually getting a job because they're not even in that field. So who do you go to? Well, HR is the other gatekeeper, and a company that has 50, 75 or more employees is going to have an HR department. And HR is going to be the screener. They're going to be the gatekeeper. They're going to be the wall standing between you and an interview. Just to get to that point, you have to overcome whatever idiosyncrasies the HR department has. That means certain keywords, which is why you use the job description and AI to create a cover letter that captures the keywords of the job description. Because some employers that receive hundreds of applications are going to screen them using AI, and they're going to say, give me a keyword match for this cover letter and resume. That means that being able to redo your cover letter and your resume for higher value jobs is going to be a requirement. And that's where the work of getting a job comes in. And by the way, it is always easier to get a job when you already have a job, when you're already working. So don't quit your job. Remember what employers want? They don't want quitters. They can smell lazy and quit miles away. So whatever you do, even if it's a horrible job and you hate your boss and you're not getting paid enough and nobody appreciates you and the work is difficult and you don't have time to play your video games or go out with friends, you will lose more opportunities if you leave a job because you say, oh, it wasn't right for me, it wasn't a fit. Employers don't want people like that. They won't hire you. Sometimes not even if you're the owner's cousin. They don't want quitters. So whatever it is, avoid the smell, the stink, the appearance of being a quitter. And with that, you've got a way to start looking for a job to move from college to career. Hey, and thanks for being part of the Do-Over Show. Please, while you're looking for a job, could you tap the like button? Because it really helps someone like me. And while you're down there, how about you subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode. I'm so glad I found you and you found me. Thanks.